Before Elon Musk, before Jeff Bezos, before SpaceX or Blue Origin, there was a man who dreamed bigger than NASA ever dared. He wasn't a billionaire. He wasn't a celebrity. He was a rebellious engineer with a garage full of scrap metal and a plan to make space travel affordable for everyone. His name was Robert Truax, and if you've never heard of him, you're not alone. He built rockets in his backyard. He tried to send a civilian to the moon. He challenged the military-industrial complex alone. This is the story of a man who believed the stars weren't just for nations or billionaires. They were for you. And even though he failed, he may have sparked the future we're living in today. Every life is a story, but some are unbelievable. This is Bold Chapter. Chapter 1. Rocket Fuel and Rebellion. Robert Truax was born in 1917, in a time when the idea of space travel still belonged to science fiction. But by the time he was a teenager, he was building homemade rockets from fire extinguishers and stovepipes in his backyard in Alameda, California. At just 18, he joined the US Navy and quickly rose through the ranks, not because he followed orders, but because he challenged them. During World War II, he led secret propulsion experiments and helped develop jet-assisted takeoff technology. He was brilliant, innovative, restless, but bureaucracy frustrated him. He hated waste, he hated red tape, and most of all, he hated that rockets were being used only for war, not for peace. So he left the military to pursue something far more radical, a private space program. Chapter 2. The DIY Space Race. In the 1960s, while the world watched the USA and USSR race to the moon, Truax had a different vision. He believed that space shouldn't belong to governments. It should belong to the people. His dream? To make rocket launches so cheap, anyone could one day leave the Earth. From his own garage and workshop, Truax began designing massive rockets using off-the-shelf materials and surplus military parts. His most ambitious project was the Sea Dragon, a two-stage sea-launched rocket that, if built, would have been the largest ever constructed, capable of lifting 550 tons into orbit. The cost? Less than 1/10 of NASA's budget. But NASA dismissed him. They said it was too unconventional, too risky, too independent. Still, Truax believed in his numbers, and he never stopped building. Chapter 3. Private Enterprise. Public Laughter. By the early 1970s, Truax had grown tired of waiting for approval, so he did something unthinkable. He launched his own moon mission. He called it Project Private Enterprise, and the goal was clear: send a private citizen to the moon without government help. His choice for pilot? Evel Knievel, the world's most famous stuntman. Yes, that Evel Knievel. The announcement made headlines. Most people thought it was a joke, but Truax wasn't laughing. He was already designing the rocket. His plan was to develop a manned suborbital launch system using a series of test vehicles, starting with the SkyCycle X3, a rocket-powered vehicle Knievel would ride across Snake River Canyon. It failed spectacularly, but to Truax, that was just one more step towards success. Chapter 4. Rockets in the Backyard. Truax's methods were crude but effective. He reused old engines, modified military hardware, and welded fuel tanks in his backyard. He didn't have NASA's budget, but he had something even more valuable: belief. He believed the world would one day thank him, that his failures would light the path for others. For years, he tested engines in fields and deserts, often surrounded by smoke, fire, and disbelief. He raised funds from eccentric millionaires, sold blueprints to aerospace magazines, and even tried to build a tourist spaceport. Most people dismissed him as a madman, but some saw a prophet. Hey, you're here for bold stories, and we've got plenty more coming. Smash that like button, Follow us on Instagram and TikTok and drop a comment to tell us what hit you hardest in this episode. And if you want to ride with us all the way to the top, subscribe right now. Let's make this the fastest growing channel of 2025. It's a community and you're part of it. Chapter 5. The Dream That Outlived Him. Robert Truax never saw a rocket of his reach the moon. He died in 2010 at the age of 93, but just a few years later, Elon Musk would launch SpaceX, Jeff Bezos would unveil Blue Origin, and both men echoed Truax's mission. Make space accessible, cheap, civilian, private. Truax never met them. But they walked the path he had cleared, quietly, in obscurity, with blueprints scribbled in a garage. In many ways, he was the first. Chapter 6. What if he had succeeded? What if NASA had taken him seriously? What if the Sea Dragon had been built in the 60s? A rocket larger than the Saturn V, launched from the ocean, carrying freight and people to orbit every week. What if his plan to democratize space had caught fire? We might have had space tourism in the 1980s. We might have had orbital factories by now. We might have seen schools take field trips to space. Instead, Truax faded into history. But the what if he left behind still fuels a question we must ask. Why must exploration be reserved for the elite? Chapter 7. Lessons from the Rocket Rebel. Robert Truax wasn't a polished speaker. He didn't care about press conferences or popularity. He cared about doing. He showed us that the future doesn't belong to committees. It belongs to builders, to those who try and fail, and try again. In an age where billionaires now dominate the headlines, it's worth remembering that one man with a wrench and a dream tried to beat them all 50 years earlier. And he didn't do it for money. He did it because he believed humanity was meant for the stars. Chapter 8. The Man Who Refused to Give Up. Even after the Snake River Canyon failure and after multiple investors walked away, Robert Truax refused to surrender. He was in his late 60s. His body was aging. His funding was gone. But the fire, still burning. He began working on a new rocket, the Excalibur, designed to take passengers into space on short suborbital flights. He didn't want to be the one to fly it. He wanted to build the infrastructure, the runway, the technology, the proof of concept. He knew he might never see the launch, but he believed others would finish what he started. In an interview, he said, "There are three kinds of people in this world: those who make things happen, those who watch things happen, and those who wonder what happened. I want to be the first kind." And he was. Chapter 9. The Courage to be Ridiculed. Truax didn't just battle engineering problems. He battled public mockery, media ridicule, and the constant eye rolls of the aerospace elite. They called him foolish, unrealistic, a dreamer, and he was. But what they didn't understand is that all progress begins with dreamers. Truax once spoke at a conference where his designs were openly mocked by an audience of engineers. He smiled, walked off stage, and went back to work. He knew something they didn't. You don't need validation to change the world. You just need time and the courage to be laughed at. Because today's madman is often tomorrow's visionary. Another chapter closed, but the story is far from over. Subscribe to Bold Chapter and never miss what's next. Robert Truax didn't become a household name. He died in 2010, surrounded by family, not fame. But his legacy lives in the rockets of SpaceX, Blue Origin, Virgin Galactic, in reusable launch vehicles, in sea-based launch systems, in the very idea that space is not the final frontier. It's the next one. He was called a fool for believing that space could be commercial, a madman for thinking people could board rockets like airplanes, a nobody for daring to build what governments wouldn't. But every movement needs a spark. Every revolution starts in silence. Robert Truax was that spark. And today, the sky is finally catching fire. So the next time you see a rocket rise above the clouds, remember this. It might carry the dreams of billionaires, but it rests on the shoulders of a forgotten genius who once dared to sell the moon.